You hit $1 million. Maybe it's in your 401k, maybe it's spread across brokerage accounts, maybe it's locked up in the equity of a house you're about to sell. Whatever the source, you have $1 million, and you're thinking about retirement. Congratulations, and I mean that sincerely. But here's what nobody is going to tell you at your retirement party, or at the bank when you roll over that IRA, or when your neighbor gives you a knowing nod. That $1 million in 2026 is both more powerful and more fragile than you think. And the moment you start telling people you have it, you've already started losing it. Today, we're going to cover 7 hard truths about retiring with $1 million in today's economic environment. Not the inspirational version, the real version. We're going to talk about inflation, about the people in your life who will, conscious or not, pull that money away from you, about the government's share of it you haven't accounted for, and about why silence might be your single best financial tool in retirement. Stay until the end because segment 7 is the one that most financial YouTubers are too scared to say out loud. The math that sounds great but isn't quite right. For decades, financial planners lived by what's called the 4% rule. The idea, if you withdraw 4% of your portfolio per year in retirement, your money should last 30 years. On $1 million, that's $40,000 per year, or about $3,333 per month. Now, if you have Social Security on top of that, let's say another $1,800 to $2,200 a month for the average retiree, you're looking at roughly $5,000 to $5,500 a month in income. Depending on where you live, that sounds manageable, maybe even comfortable. But here's where 2026 changes everything. Inflation has permanently reset the baseline. Between 2020 and 2024, cumulative inflation hit roughly 22 to 24%, depending on which index you use. The prices of groceries, housing, insurance, and healthcare didn't just go up, they stayed up. What $40,000 bought in 2019 now costs closer to $49,000 to $50,000 in 2026. So your 4% withdrawal in real purchasing power is actually closer to a 3.2 or 3.3% withdrawal. That's not catastrophic, but it compresses your margin for error significantly. Healthcare is the hidden $1 million line item. Here's a number that will keep you up at night if you retire before age 65. Fidelity's 2024 estimate suggested that the average couple retiring at 65 will spend approximately $315,000 on healthcare throughout retirement, and that's with Medicare. If you retire at 60 or 62, you're looking at bridging a gap of 3 to 5 years without Medicare. A private health insurance plan for a 60-year-old couple can easily run $1,500 to $2,500 per month before copays, deductibles, or prescriptions. That's $18,000 to $30,000 per year coming directly out of your million. Long-term care, the expense nobody plans for. According to Genworth's most recent cost of care survey, the median annual cost of a private room in a nursing facility exceeded $100,000 per year. Assisted living runs $50,000 to $70,000 annually in most states. The Department of Health and Human Services has estimated that roughly 70% of people turning 65 today will need some form of long-term care during their lifetime. $1 million sounds like a lot until you realize 2 to 4 years in memory care could consume 40 to 50% of it. So is $1 million enough? For some people, absolutely. For others, it's a starting point that requires careful management, not a finish line to relax on. The tax reality nobody explains clearly. Here's the part of your $1 million that Uncle Sam hasn't collected yet. The pre-tax trap. If your $1 million is sitting in a traditional 401k or traditional IRA, and for most Americans it is, then you don't actually have $1 million. You have $1 million on paper. What you actually have is $1 million minus whatever your tax bracket will be when you start withdrawing. If you're in the 22% federal bracket in retirement and you add state income tax, let's say another 5% for a mid-range state, you're looking at 27% going to taxes. That million is functionally $730,000 in spendable money. If you're in the 24% bracket federally and live in California, New York, or another high-tax state, you could lose 35 to 40 cents of every dollar you withdraw. Required minimum distributions will force your hand. At age 73, under current law as of 2026, the IRS requires you to start withdrawing from your traditional retirement accounts, whether you want to or not. These are called required minimum distributions, or RMDs. The amount is calculated based on your account balance and your life expectancy. And here's the catch. If your account has grown well, your RMDs can push you into a higher tax bracket than you planned for. If your $1 million grew to $1.5 million by age 73, your first RMD could be $55,000 or more. Add Social Security, up to 85% of which can become taxable, and suddenly you're paying taxes on more income than you ever expected. The Roth conversion window. The years between when you retire and when RMDs begin are what tax planners call your conversion window. During this time, especially if your income is low, you can convert traditional IRA money to a Roth IRA, paying taxes now at a lower rate, so all future growth and withdrawals are tax-free. This is not a loophole. This is a legal, well-documented strategy, but it requires planning and it requires knowing these windows exist. Most people don't. Most people just start withdrawing and react to their tax bill every April. Don't be most people. Why you should tell absolutely no one. This is the segment the title promised you, and I want to be clear about something before we start. I'm not talking about hiding money from the government. I'm not talking about anything illegal. I'm talking about the entirely rational, psychologically grounded decision to keep your financial situation private from almost every single person in your life. Here's why. Reason 1. The family loan that never gets repaid. The moment people know you have money, and retirement savings count as having money in most family dynamics, the requests begin. It starts small. A cousin who needs help with rent, a sibling who has a can't-miss business idea, an adult child who needs a down payment just to get started. These aren't bad people. They love you, and that's exactly why it's so hard to say no. But here's the financial reality. A $30,000 loan to a family member that doesn't get repaid isn't just $30,000. At a 6% annual return compounded over 20 years, that's nearly $96,000 you won't have in your later retirement years. That's a year and a half of your retirement income gone. And when money flows between family members without formal agreements, resentment follows. Either they resent you for eventually saying no, or you resent them for not repaying. Neither outcome is worth it. Reason 2. Financial predators are more sophisticated than you think. In 2025, the FBI reported that elder financial fraud cost Americans over $3.4 billion annually, and that number almost certainly undercounts cases that go unreported out of embarrassment. The scammers aren't just cold callers from overseas anymore. They are fake financial advisors. They're romance scams built over months. They're fake grandchild emergencies. They're cryptocurrency opportunities introduced through trusted social networks. And the single biggest risk factor? People who publicly or semi-publicly discuss their wealth. If you post about your retirement on Facebook, if you mention it to the wrong neighbor, if it comes up at a dinner party, you have just created a target on your back. This is not paranoia. This is documented statistical reality. Reason 3. Lifestyle inflation by social pressure. There's a subtler threat than outright fraud. It's social pressure to spend in ways that match your perceived wealth. When friends and family know you're retired with a comfortable portfolio, the invitations change. The trips get more expensive. The restaurants get fancier. The expectations about who picks up the check quietly shift. Nobody's being malicious, but retirement is not the time to fund a lifestyle built around other people's expectations. Reason 4. It changes relationships in ways you can't predict. Money knowledge is relational dynamite. Once people know you have it, every interaction, every gift, every decision, every disagreement gets filtered through that knowledge. Your children might start waiting for an inheritance rather than building their own financial security. Your siblings might quietly resent what they see as your good fortune. Old friends might pull away, feeling like your worlds are too different now. None of this is inevitable, but it's common enough that the safest default is discretion. The people who genuinely love you regardless of your net worth. You don't need to tell them to prove anything. Who should you tell? Practically speaking, a small trusted circle needs to know. Your spouse or financial partner, obviously. A qualified, fee-only financial advisor, not someone who earns commissions on what they sell you. Your estate attorney, your accountant or CPA. That's largely it. Everyone else is on a need-to-know basis, and for most decisions, they don't need to know. The order you withdraw money matters enormously. Most people in retirement think about income in terms of how much they need each month. The smarter question is, which account do I pull from first? The order of withdrawals, what financial planners call withdrawal sequencing, can add hundreds of thousands of dollars to the lifespan of your portfolio. The general framework. A commonly recommended sequence for most retirees. First, spend down taxable accounts, regular brokerage accounts. Capital gains taxes here are often lower than ordinary income taxes on retirement account withdrawals, and you're not burning tax-advantaged space. Second, draw from tax-deferred accounts, traditional IRA, 401k. Do this strategically, ideally staying within a targeted tax bracket. Third, pull from Roth accounts last. Let them grow tax-free as long as possible, and use them as a tax-free reserve for large one-time expenses or in high-income years. Social Security timing is part of this equation. Every year you delay claiming Social Security between age 62 and 70, your benefit grows by roughly 6 to 8%. Waiting from 62 to 70 can increase your monthly benefit by as much as 77%. If you have savings to bridge the gap, even partially drawing from your portfolio early, delaying Social Security can dramatically improve your total lifetime income, especially if you live into your 80s. This is a counterintuitive move, but it's mathematically sound for most healthy retirees. The Roth ladder strategy. If you retired early and have years before RMDs or Social Security kick in, a Roth conversion ladder lets you systematically move money from traditional to Roth accounts during low income years, effectively prepaying taxes at a lower rate. After 5 years, the Roth conversion holding period, those converted funds can be withdrawn tax-free and penalty-free. It's a powerful strategy that requires planning, but can save tens of thousands in taxes over a retirement lifetime. How to actually invest the million in retirement. You've accumulated the million. Now the question is, what do you do with it? The worst mistake retirees make is going too conservative too fast, parking everything in bonds or CDs because it feels safe, and then watching inflation slowly erode their purchasing power. The second worst mistake, staying too aggressive and experiencing a major market correction in the first 5 years of retirement, which is what planners call sequence of returns risk. The bucket strategy. One framework many retirement planners use is called the bucket strategy. You divide your money into 3 mental buckets. Bucket 1, short-term, years 1 to 3. Keep 1 to 2 years of living expenses in cash or short-term bonds. This is your safety buffer. Market goes down, you draw from here, not from stocks. No panic selling. Bucket 2, medium term, years 4 to 10. Invest in a mix of dividend-paying stocks, bonds, and REITs. This generates income and moderate growth. It replenishes bucket 1 over time. Bucket 3, long term, years 10 plus. This is your growth engine. This can hold more equities, stock index funds, international exposure, growth-oriented assets. You won't touch this for a decade, so short-term volatility doesn't matter. The 60-40 portfolio is not dead, but it's not the only answer. The traditional 60% stocks, 40% bonds allocation has faced criticism in recent years because the bond component underperformed during the rate hike cycle of 2022 to 2024. But bonds are recovering, and for retirees who need stability, a modified version, maybe 55% equities, 30% bonds, 10% alternatives like REITs, 5% cash, can still provide the balance of growth and protection. What matters more than any specific ratio is consistency, low fees, and tax efficiency. Low-cost index funds from providers like Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab have made it easier than ever to build a diversified, low-fee portfolio. The average expense ratio for an actively managed fund is still around 0.6 to 1%. A comparable index fund costs 0.03 to 0.10%. On a $1 million portfolio, the difference between 1% fees and 0.05% fees is roughly $9,500 per year. Compounded over 20 years, that's a life-changing amount of money. The thing most financial creators won't say. I told you I'd save this for the end. Here it is. $1 million in retirement is a privilege. It is more than most Americans will ever accumulate. And yet, in 2026, it is also, in many cities, for many circumstances, not quite enough to guarantee a worry-free retirement. That tension is uncomfortable. The financial media tends to resolve it in two dishonest directions. Either they tell you $1 million is more than plenty, you've made it, relax, which is irresponsible cheerleading that sets people up for hard surprises. Or they tell you it's nowhere near enough, you need $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, which is often anxiety-driven content designed to keep you watching, clicking, and frankly questioning yourself unnecessarily. The honest answer is, it depends. And the factors it depends on are entirely knowable and plannable. Where you live, your health, your family situation, your spending habits, whether you have a pension or strong Social Security, whether your housing is paid off. What I want you to take away from this video is this. $1 million is a foundation, not a guarantee, not a catastrophe, a foundation. And foundations need to be protected from inflation, from taxes, from bad advice, from well-meaning people who don't fully understand your situation, and from the quiet social pressure to spend in ways that don't serve your future. Silence about your wealth isn't shame. It isn't hoarding. It isn't antisocial. It is strategy. The people who built that million, the ones who saved when others spent, invested when others hesitated, deferred gratification for years, those people understand something that most of the population doesn't. Money is a tool. Tools work best when they're maintained, protected, and used deliberately. Tell your financial advisor, tell your attorney, tell your spouse, and then let your life speak for itself. Outro and call to action. If this video gave you something to think about, hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. I've got a free retirement readiness checklist linked in the description. It covers the 8 questions you should be able to answer before you retire, including the tax sequencing and withdrawal order framework we talked about today. If you're within 5 years of retirement, subscribe and turn on notifications. We publish every week on exactly these kinds of practical, no-fluff retirement planning topics. And leave me a comment. What's the one thing about retirement that nobody in your life talks about honestly? I read every comment. Take care of yourselves and take care of that foundation you've built. You've earned it.